ladies and gentlemen. So, welcome back. And today is going to be a conversation of the stock market analysis. And all over the world, we have all the news going on. It is super, super hot in the stock market, in the crypto market as well. New all-time high are being made. Some traders have their profit being washed away. Some of the traders out there, they have their money being won. Some people are on the sideline wondering what do we have to do next, and some people are just on this video to know what's coming up next. Now, before we actually talk with what is going on inside this in your screen right now, I'm wondering where should I even really start, because there's so many things I want to talk about, and we're going to go step by step. And I think the most perfect place to start this conversation is going to be, and this one is a big one, in the US. Japan trade deal sparks market optimism. So okay, I'm actually going to go on and show you this one amazing article, and this is from nypost.com, that Trump announces sweeping Japan trade deal with $550 billion investment by Tokyo. So on July 22, we did have Donald Trump, who have actually come up with dealing with the Japanese prime minister. I guess, they had their meeting up and they have decided that we are going to have a 15% tariff charges, which is actually very interesting thing. And I'm actually going to get back to you in a second why 15% is actually very, very interesting. So this is the message here. We just completed a massive deal with Japan, perhaps the largest deal ever made. Japan will invest at my direction $550 billion in the United States, which will receive 90% of the profit. Basically, I was actually reading this one in Donald Trump voice. It actually sounds like him. We just completed a massive deal with Japan, perhaps the largest deal ever made. That's how he talks. And perhaps most importantly, Japan will open their country to trade, include cars, trucks, rice, and certain other agricultural product and other things. Japan will pay reciprocal tariff to the United States of 15%. So as I said in the start of the video, that this is an interesting number, because normally Trump is charging 25%. So if you go on Google and you research countries charged 25% tariff, so you can see that AI is actually giving us the answer, but Canada and Mexico are giving 25%. So what's up with Japan giving 15%? That is actually quite interesting. Now, I think the Japanese are amazing negotiators. Maybe that's how they are. And there's also one more thing, that they're not just good negotiators, but I think once they have a dealing with a particular country, they actually keep their word, they deliver. And I think Trump is actually most happy to work with them. Now, Europe is next in line, and I think there's an agreement between US and Europe, and it has been surfacing for quite some time, but we're going to actually get to see that. Now, what is the effect of, Trump actually closing this deal? Because S&P has moved up, right? So if we go here, we're searching for S&P, and I think S&P 500, that's how I'm actually going to write in here. So let's move on to SP 500, and you can see that FP 500 is making waves right now, right? So we're moving and we're pumping, and the prices are really, really moving all the way to the upside. And of course, you have to be very careful as a new investor. Whenever you want to invest into something, you have to be really, really careful, because the market is pretty high right now. And I would actually even do a little bit of a TA right here, because it's important. And you can see that there's a trend line that is coming in as a resistance when you actually look at S&P. So you have to be very careful, because there is a saying that goes in the market that buy the rumor and sell the news, right? So the news is coming out, and we're pretty high over the charts in here. I'm just doing a little bit of a TA so that you can be careful regarding this one. But S&P, nonetheless, just because of this news alone, was actually moving quite high. We do have the Dow Jones and whatnot. These guys as well are, moving, pretty well. So let's actually go on and talk about the next point, which is Apple is making an amazing ascending triangle. So let's go into the chart, and I'm actually going to type in Apple here. So Apple Stock Exchange, as previously I did open up the window and I told you that we're going to get back into the Apple and what it's doing. When you look at the daily time frame, right, this is the daily time frame, and then we go on and we try to look at the daily time frame. We have Apple that for the past few days, ever since 9 of April, it has been climbing sideways here, and it has been telling a story. So the story that is being told right here with Apple is one resistance is coming up like this, and there is a support that is coming up where the prices are bouncing off this trend line. And you can see that if it does make any sense, this is actually going to be an ascending triangle. So if we just check the ascending triangle pattern and you look at that, this is actually a bullish pattern, right? You can just read about it. Now it is just about time that we get to see the break of the ascending triangle with Apple. So if anyone is trying to get a trade in there, I think this is one of those setups that you can keep an eye on. If you take the top to the bottom and you try to place the top to the bottom just like that, and you place it like this, you can actually win a price appreciation of 14%, which is pretty huge. Or if you end up breaking to the downside for the stock itself, then you're going to see a move down of 14%. So it's just plus 14% or minus 14%. Which direction is it going to take? Let's actually increase this trend line together, and there's a maximum time until 8th of September to get to know what happens next, because in the middle what you can do is you can still go a little bit lower, you can come up a little bit higher, consolidate, either push to the upside or pop down and go to the downside. Let's actually talk about Tesla and Alphabet earnings in focus. And according to one of the news from Barron's, we have already learned that S&P, Nasdaq, and all these, have been moving up because of the US and Japan that reached to the trade agreement. But Tesla has actually been falling down, and Alphabet released that they have actually been rising. They had a close higher for 10 straight season, rising 9.7% over the span. So which is leading to a very interesting conversation, which is Tesla earning tumble again on its EV sales slump. So this is according to the CNN, and I'm actually going to give you my own input regarding this one. So Tesla electric vehicle is performing not as good as it used to be performing, and the reason is because Chinese are releasing their own EV cars out there in the world for people to actually use. So when you talk about electric vehicle, you have beyond your dream, right? You have your beyond your dream SUV and whatnot. Even as a matter of fact, there is a very interesting conversation where we saw BYD electric car. If I actually do search for this one, BYD electric car beating Ferrari in speed. Yeah, so you are going to be amazed that China supercar is faster than a Ferrari. You guys can actually watch the news regarding this, because this is not a car comparison video, but I'm just giving you this as a reference, because if a BYD electric car, which is lesser than a Tesla in some of the prices out there, are performing way better, Tesla is going to have a very strong competition out there. And that's the reason why we're looking at the Tesla electric vehicle market actually dropping down. Block Inc. joins the S&P 500. Now you see, when you are new in a university, right, you're this cool student walking in the university, and you have your bag, you're absolutely hot, people are loving you. There are seniors out there who are going to either get jealous of you, or some of them are going to embrace your confidence. But the thing is that when you make it into the S&P 500, you are the cool kid in town, and the new cool kid in town is Block Inc.
Who does he think he is?
He's got some nerve.
Now, if you have used services like Cash App, Afterpay, and Tidal, the company, is known as Block right now. This was the former name, and the digital payment that is empowering all of these payment processors is known as Block. And now Block has officially entered S&P 500 as third crypto-linked company. Stock surges 14% on Bitcoin exposure. So this is one thing you guys can actually go on and research about if you want to get further details regarding block, because right now whenever something enters S&P 500, you are probably going to be looking at some huge volatility behind the new mentioned stock out there in stock market. Next up is going to be the Nvidia market cap milestone. Nvidia becomes the first company to reach $4 trillion in market value, right? So there used to be Apple. At some point it was, I think, the first company to reach $1 trillion business, and now Nvidia becomes the first company to reach a $4 trillion business. Now, if anyone doesn't know what Nvidia really is, they deal in graphic cards. So the graphic cards that you look in computer gaming, is one of the best laptops. MacBook uses Nvidia, Windows uses Nvidia, Linux is using Nvidia as a processor. So basically they take graphic cards and some of the components just to empower their devices. And also, speaking of 2025, it's already the time of artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is on the rise, and there are so many projects out there in artificial intelligence, even for cryptocurrencies, that are going to be booming probably in the future. Now, if we take a look at the chart itself, the Nvidia chart, be warned, right? Be warned. Right now, Nvidia is at its highest at the moment. So ever since back in 13 August, we have seen a huge price climb up of 1371%. That means if you invested $1, you're probably getting $1,371 just for investing $1. That's really crazy, right? I know. But as higher as thing goes, there's always a saying they're actually going to cool down. So let's actually talk about this, and let's do a little bit of a TA. So we do know that support and resistance is a very important thing. And I've actually showed you S&P. S&P has been climbing up, and it has reached the resistance. Today, Nvidia as well is reaching a certain resistance. If I actually bring in that resistance right here, this is exactly where people are going to be selling, because there was a sell-off number one, move down. There is a sell-off number two right here and a move down. And this is a place where it's really highly likely that Nvidia can actually be sold just one more time, and it can actually move to the downside. Now, as you have your resistance line, you're also going to have your support line. So if we do bring the support lines right here and we drop the support line just like this, I'm actually going to drag and drop these support lines together. You can see that there is almost like a very big channel on the daily time frame where we have one touch here. We have another bounce off here, we have another bounce right there, some few bounces over here as well. So if you were ever to come down for Nvidia, this can actually tank down to this lower trend line in the future, maybe until November. We do not know. Maybe it could take 3 months, 4 months. We do not really know. But the thing is, if you ever go down from that resistance line, you're looking for the lower support line all the way down to 119. So that can actually be a price change of maybe 30%, which is pretty big for especially people who are investing millions into the stock. So I would say be a little bit more smart, be a little bit more careful, and if you want to do the smart thing, let it come down to this trend line, because that's just the most perfect place to have your trades one more time. And remember, it's not a financial advice, just something that I think makes more sense and it would be safe for you to trade. The next topic is Europe seeks trade deal with the US. So I decided I'm going to go to Gemini. Gemini is an AI built by Google. So it's a language model where you can actually write a question and you're going to get the answer. So the first question that I did write, and if I do zoom into the question, I said, Gemini, what do you think about the US and Europe trade deal? So there are some few things that it actually spilled out in the result here. It says that the current situation regarding a trade deal between the US and Europe is quite dynamic and under intense negotiation, especially with the August 1st, 2025 deadline for the new US tariffs rapidly approaching. So there is a breakdown, and it's suggesting there's an urgent negotiations. Of course, Europe and US have been trying to, get each other to work with one another. They're trying to actually make things good between one of them. And as we actually learned earlier, that Japan deal can offer as a template. So now that Japan is like they're including a 15% tariff on Japanese imports, I think that the European are trying to aim into the same department. I actually wonder, why did Donald Trump actually do a 15% tariff on Japanese and did 25% on Canada and New Mexico and other different countries? Maybe some people are saying that it's just because the more established you are as a country, the more tariffs you're going to pay. Maybe Trump is a little bit lenient on Japanese people. Maybe if you are underdeveloped countries, the tariffs are just going to be a little bit lower. So it depends on so many factors. I don't even know what it is exactly, right? So I actually did go on and I asked Gemini, will they come to an agreement? Do AI think that US and Europe are actually going to come to an agreement? So it appears that there's a high likelihood that the US and the Europe will come to an agreement, or at least a temporary understanding before the 1st August deadline. So there's a lot of reason as to why they can actually have a dealing for that 15% tariff. And I personally think that somehow, where there's a will, they say there's a way. So we might just get to see the US and the Europe people coming down to deal with one another. Finally, Bitcoin hits record high amid regulatory advances. So let's actually get into a Bitcoin chart this time around, and let's talk about Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is moving really high. It's actually matching the energy of S&P. It's actually matching the energy of Dow Jones. So the stock have been moving up. Nvidia has been moving up. All-time highs are being created, and it is not even different for Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is now a part of a stock. It is believed to be a part of stock. There's ETF being approved now. So Bitcoin, on the other hand, is also a very big part of this market world we're actually looking at, the stock world we're looking at. And there is a channel that I actually noticed for Bitcoin. It is just as similar as what we saw with Nvidia as well. So we have this lower support bouncing off here, the lower support again, another lower support again, another lower support right there, and another support right here. And the only thing that makes sense for Bitcoin to me is that if Bitcoin continues, then we might just see Bitcoin moving and climbing all the way to the upside to that particular trend line, so which can actually even be $148,000. But you never know, right? You really never know if this is going to happen. You could even just go down from the middle right here, and you will just ignore completely to move to the upside. Now let's just hope that Bitcoin does actually push above and decides to go to $150,000, because right now it is really hard to say if people are even more bullish on Bitcoin or bearish on Bitcoin, because some are trying to short, some are trying to long. It's always a fight between the buyers and the sellers. But the takeaway, right? Some of the few takeaways that I think is important to talk about. So number one is going to be careful about the market. There could be a trap. So I've analyzed about S&P, and I've actually talked about Dow Jones and Bitcoin, and they are at their all-time high, and it actually looks a little bit dangerous, and we could actually be on a trap. The market could actually trap a lot of investors, because the more good you hear is actually bad in the real practical world of stock market. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed, and we're going to see you with the next one, with the next episode. So do make sure you subscribe, do make sure that you follow the channel so that you can get these news in the future.